Welcome back to TV Toastmasters. My name is Philip Mandel. I'm a member of Creekside Toastmasters, as well as TV Toastmasters. My guest today, Gerry Snell, grew up on a farm, went into engineering, then went into business, has a fascinating background and some interesting plans for the future. Gerry, welcome to TV Toastmasters.
Yeah, thank you, Phil.
Yeah, nice to see you here.
Nice to be here.
Yeah, so you told me a little bit about the farm you grew up on in Washington, and then why don't you start there, and then we'll move into the education part.
Yeah, I grew up on a 1,000-acre family farm in central Washington. Actually, my parents started the farm. They cleared the sagebrush, took water from Grand Coulee Dam, and started to grow crops.
Mm-hmm. Good. And what kind of crops do they?
They grew sugar beets and corn and peas and beans, alfalfa hay, and later they started an orchard with the golden and red delicious apples.
Ooh, good old Washington apples.
Yes, sir.
Oh, that's wonderful. And your job there was to play? No,
actually not, because in those days, kids on the farm worked.
Okay.
First drove a tractor when I was 6, and I was owned my own harvesting business at 14, where I owned a machine and did custom work for neighbors' farms.
Oh, how fun. All right, that must have been a blast as a kid. And
it was, but 16, 18-hour days and the heat and
somehow you went
dust,
to school
yeah.
and qualified to go to college.
Yeah.
And then I think you and I have the same undergraduate degree, which is biomedical engineering.
That's true.
So what drew you to that, and then what happened after?
I was always interested in doing stuff with my hands. I ended up being kind of the farm mechanic when I was there. So I was drawn to engineering, and I was also very interested in medical field. So I took pre-med classes. Mm-hmm. Not quite smart enough to be a medical doctor, but I was able to take classes with those guys and combine it with engineering, which is very interesting, going to an engineering class and then going to a pre-med class. It's like going through the looking glass, two totally different types of personalities you deal with.
I would agree, having been through the same paradigm. So anyway, you got that degree, and then you went on into business, and you got a master's.
I did. I started working in engineering and discovered, particularly as I was getting promoted, that I really needed to round my background and learn about business. And that was really helpful for me, very much so.
Good. And then you did actually work in tech for a little while.
Yeah, a long time.
Okay. And then when became a business consultant.
I did that also, yes.
Man of many talents. And now something that's sort of taking you back to your farm roots has sprung up. And why don't you tell us about, I believe it's called Fresh Air Farms.
Yes, I founded Fresh Air Farms. Fresh Air Farms was founded to grow produce, fruits and vegetables, in controlled environment agriculture. And in my case, that would be greenhouses, totally controlled environment, like a clean room, where you go in with special protection to keep the insects and the disease, so you can grow these plants in water, not soil, with no chemicals, only the nutrients that's required for the plants to grow. No
bugs, so you don't need pesticides?
Correct, yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Keep the door closed.
Okay. And in water, so there's no soil.
Right, called hydroponics is what they call that.
Is that what hydroponics is?
Yeah.
Okay. And you said fruit. Fruit comes off trees. Trees are happy in water?
There are greenhouses, hydroponic tree growing, but more typically we're talking about berries and smaller fruits,
Gotcha.
not so much the tree-bearing fruits. So.
Got it. So let's see. So the business plan for Fresh Air Farms would be how big and where, and what's the advantage versus the greenhouses that already exist that grow produce?
Well, that's a good question. Our unique position was to be commercial scale and local. By commercial scale, I mean that each site would put out at full production 20 tons of produce every day. Every day of the year. Every day of the year, yes.
Okay.
Trucks in and out
Wow.
steadily.
Holy moly. Okay, go
Yeah.
ahead. And the trucks deliver the food to where?
Our target customer was direct to the grocery stores.
Okay.
Or grocery store distribution. Some of the larger grocery stores have their own distribution. The idea is we would pick one day and it would be on the shelf the next day. So you'd get the fresh fruit, fresh vegetables.
So competing with the fruit, vegetables that comes up from California, Mexico, or elsewhere.
Yeah, China.
It could be, or China.
Yeah.
It could be more than one day old.
For sure. Even air shipment, there's no way they can get it that quickly to the shelf.
Gotcha. So what do you need to get started? Like, get a bunch of us out there with shovels and start digging? What do you need?
Well, we have the plan.
Okay.
We have the technical plan and the financial plan. We're in the funding stage right now.
Okay.
As you might imagine, this is a high-tech process, highly capital intensive. It's about $1 million an acre to have a high-quality controlled environment agricultural site.
Wow.
And we're talking about a 50-acre site.
50-acre site. So there's not a 50-acre building.
No.
How does that work then?
What we're planning to do is put 2 greenhouses per acre for a couple reasons. One is so that we have the isolation, so we can make sure if there's any contamination or any disease that it's isolated.
Mm-hmm.
But more importantly, we can grow various crops, and we have them coming out at different times so that the total output would be the same every day. And if the market changed, for example, there was more demand for tomatoes and less demand for berries, we could quickly switch one of the greenhouses and adapt to the market demand that way.
Very interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
So people are used to eating sort of seasonally.
Yeah.
Berries come around at a certain time, and watermelons pop out in August, and so on. So would you cycle your crops sort of that way, or would you literally the same every week, every day?
Well, that's a great question. There is some habits, and there's some learning that we would have to, some education.
Right.
The long-term goal is to keep it fairly steady throughout the seasons. And we would have the ability to adjust based on the season, particularly if the consumer is more used to eating, say, fruit during the summer than in the winter.
Mm-hmm.
But that's one of the magic about having so many greenhouses is that you can adapt to what the market demands very quickly.
Perfect. So how big? I know some real estate agents that can help you find the land. And how many acres did you say you need for the first?
We're looking around 50 acres per site.
50 acres. Mm-hmm. And for that you need $1 million per acre. What do you need for? What kind of check do I need to write you to get you started?
If you wrote me a check today for $20 million, we would be in pretty good shape.
Okay.
One nice thing about the business plan is that we would start production very quickly as we were expanding. So we would start to pay for ourselves even while we're still expanding.
Interesting. So in other words, the first 1 or 2 or 10 or number of greenhouses would go up, start producing, and help fund the remaining greenhouses.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
I could write you a check for $20 million today.
Yeah. Would it go through the bank?
Good luck with that.
We do have a bank account. So.
Very good. So you have partners in this, or just on your own?
I have a board of advisors, which would become, they're part owners in the business, but at this point, I own the majority. Mm-hmm. The intent would be, though, as we bring on funders, they would start to own more and more.
Right.
So if you wrote me a check for $20 million, I'd be willing to give you a portion of the business.
A portion.
Yeah. We can negotiate that.
We can negotiate.
Yeah.
All right. I'll see what I can do. So let's just pretend that happens, and 50 acres shows up in Washington County for you, and you get all the infrastructure. I mean, you're going to take a lot of water and electricity and power to control the environment and such.
We are. But one of our long-term plans is actually to be self-sufficient.
Okay.
So one nice thing about controlled environment agriculture is it uses far less water than outside.
Okay.
Because you're enclosed, you can actually recycle the water and use it over and over again, and you don't need near as much.
Gotcha.
As far as energy goes, our plan is to be self-sufficient using solar, using biomass. There's lots of biomass in plants, and also geothermal, which all of those have been used in various other businesses around.
Gotcha.
So that's the ultimate goal, is total self-sufficiency.
That's fascinating.
Rainwater collection, all that kind of stuff.
Wow. All right. Well, I wish you luck with that. How can people find out more if they just want to see what you're up to?
Well, we have a website which has quite a bit of information.
Okay.
It's www.freshairfarms.com.
Okay.
And there's some contact page where you can actually contact me directly, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions for you.
Awesome. Freshairfarms.com.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
good.
that's farms, not farm.
Farms.
Yeah,
Okay,
plural.
gotcha. Great. All right. This is Philip Mandel with TV Toastmasters. I just interviewed Gerry Snell talking about Fresh Air Farms. We hope to see you again on a future episode of TV Toastmasters.
Hello, my name is Beth Genley. I became acquainted with TV Toastmasters. I got interviewed here a few times and began to learn how to speak to a camera and how different that is from speaking to a group, how to connect with an audience that I can't see, and how to stay focused on a camera that is not talking back to me or smiling. After I did that a few times, I was invited to become an associate producer here, and now I'm bringing people from my club and other interesting people to TV Toastmasters each month and finding out wonderful stories and fantastic individuals who are contributing a great deal to our community. It's been a great ride. I'm really looking forward to seeing what the next year will bring as TV Toastmasters continues to be the voice for District 7.
Hello, welcome back to TV Toastmasters. My name is Kristopher Taylor. I'm your host for this segment. I'm a member of Feedbackers, a Toastmasters group in Beaverton, Oregon. My next guest tonight is Ken Coomes, a veteran Toastmaster and author. I've often thought about how to write a book, but I just don't know how, so I brought him here to interview this afternoon. Ken, thanks for coming out.
Thank you, Chris. Happy to be here.
So, I have a few questions, but I did want to start off with a few things. I've always noticed in Toastmasters, you're always in a service capacity. Every time I see you, you're doing some service work. What got you into service work at Toastmasters?
I think it's all about people. I love to help other people grow and develop. I started by serving my country with a 23-and-a-half-year naval career. When I discovered Toastmasters, there were plenty of opportunities to help others grow, and I love to do that.
Wow, I didn't know that. So thank you for your service to Toastmasters, and thank you for your service to this country.
My pleasure.
I appreciate that. So, writing a book. I've noticed you've been an author on multiple books. What does it take to write a book? I've met a lot of Toastmasters that have written a few books, and I've also met a lot of people that wanted to write but just didn't know how to do that. Can you explain that to the viewer on what that process entails?
Let me try. When I was 12 years old, as an avid reader, I wanted to be a writer when I grew up. And like so many of those people you've talked about that want to write a book and don't know how, I let life get in the way for a long time. I thought, I need 3 or 4 hours. Lock myself away in my study, no interruptions, and just write. I never got that time. I discovered through a program called National Novel Writers Month, or NaNoWriMo, 15 minutes, write a sentence. 20 minutes, write a paragraph. If I write every day, multiple times per day in little tiny bits, I can get the job done.
I have never been told that before. So you typically just write on a daily basis, whatever time slot you get.
I do.
And whenever you put your writings together, how do you edit that? Do you edit yourself?
To start with, I try to edit myself and make it as good as I can get. Then I send it off to my editor. In this case, I'm lucky. My wife is my editor. She's very knowledgeable in grammar and English. She doesn't like to read the stuff I write, usually that genre, but she loves my books somehow. And she reads through them and comes up with great ideas. She doesn't let me write lazy. She makes me make it right.
So what is your favorite genre?
I'm split between fantasy and science fiction, and that's what I write.
What made you start writing science fiction?
When I was growing up, looking to the future and the stars and going to the moon was exciting. And I wanted to be the next Isaac Asimov or the next Heinlein. I wanted to write something like that, to visualize a new future. I started reading fantasy where there are lands and creatures that you've never dreamed of before that someone else did. Tolkien was the master, of course, and one of the early ones with Lord of the Rings. So many now with Goodkind and Jordan have written massive epic fantasies that I love to read and reread. So I got into that.
That brings me to another question. So who were some of your favorite authors?
Well, I've named a couple, Robert Jordan, Terry Goodkind, for example, Terry Brooks, the Sword of Sonara series. Terry Goodkind wrote the Sword of Truth series, which I'm currently rereading. Robert Jordan was The Wheel of Time. Those are three of my current favorites. George R.R. Martin with the Game of Thrones series. When I read those first three books, I was like, whoa, this guy really knows what he's doing. The fourth and fifth weren't as good, but I love the series on HBO.
Wonderful. So when you put those writings together, what is the process to get that published? Can you walk me through that?
In my case, I'm self-published. I talked to an agent at a publishing house. I talked to an agent that would help me self-publish in print locally, and I investigated going online and uploading my files. That turned out to be the easiest and most cost-effective way when I had no idea whether my books would be read by anyone or received or not. So I create my files, I upload them, I put them together chapter by chapter into a book, I design a cover and put the cover file with it, get an ISBN number so it can be registered in the library, and then I put it on Amazon where it can be sold.
Forgive my ignorance. What is an ISBN number?
ISBN is International Standards Book Notation, I believe. I apologize not knowing the exact acronym, but every book that you see in the library has an ISBN number. It's a 10 or 13-digit number that identifies it specifically. It lets librarians categorize the book and put it in the right place on the shelves, know what to order, and so forth.
I learn something every day. And how do you get that book on Amazon? I think that Amazon would probably be the biggest outlet for books.
Amazon does a lot for new authors, and they have a lot of offerings almost every day, and more programs I probably don't have time to talk about tonight. But for Amazon, if you go to their Kindle Direct Publishing, upload your files, they take you through it step by step. Then you price your book, you determine which markets you want to go to, just domestic or all over the world, or some countries and not others, although it's all in English unless you provide a translation. And then once you've set all that in motion, you tell them when to make the book available, and they do. They send me a royalty check every 3 months.
I'm learning a lot. So tell me about some of your characters in your book, and how do you create those characters?
As I mentioned, my characters sometimes take me in a direction I didn't plan on. So I'll create a character, and then I'll role play. I'll act, if you will. I put myself in that character's shoes. If this is a female witch who's evil, why is she evil? How is she evil? What powers does she have? What is she like and not like? I have to think of those things so I can write a character that is believable and consistent. It's easier when I write someone that's more like me, but of course if all the characters in my books were white males my age with only spoke English, it would be pretty boring.
So out of your science fiction, how much in there is based off real life? Do you ever put some of your past history in your stories?
I think every author subconsciously does that to some extent. But with science fiction, for me, it's looking to the future and creating a new set of parameters that we live in. So it can't be what I've lived through before because the world has changed in my newly imagined world.
Some of the characters and villains, are those people that you've known in past experiences? Did those characters ever evolve?
For the heroes and the good characters, I take somebody I know and admire and respect, and I'll maybe tweak the spelling of their name and make that the character name. For the villains and the bad people, I don't want to do that to anybody I know, so I come up with some off-the-wall name and that sounds evil.
Good to know. I'll keep that in mind. What are some of the skills that if writers wanted to publish a book and haven't yet done so, if you could give them 3 suggestions, 3 things that they should always do, and 1 thing that they should never do, what advice would you give?
First advice, write, write, write. Every day, write. You'll get better. You'll get the book done. Second suggestion, go to someone else to edit. No matter how carefully you edit, you're going to miss some mistakes. Third advice, write about something you're passionate about. Then you'll write words that come to life for the readers. What you don't want to do is chase the money. Say, I'm going to write a bestseller about crime. If you know nothing about crime and nothing about police work, that will not work.
I think those are really good suggestions. Have you thought of any other suggestions that you could give the fellow reader that we haven't touched on today?
For me, I think it's important for the story to be character-driven. I think we all relate to characters. Mm-hmm. So if you have believable characters that are consistent and they drive the story, I think the readers want to keep going. One of my readers and fans, I think, was too generous, but compared me to Dickens and said she read and thought I wrote like Charles Dickens. I was honored, but I don't think it's anything the case at all. But if you write the characters real enough, people get invested. Then they want to read more.
Very interesting, and that brings me to another point. So tell me about some of the fans. Have you enjoyed some of the success of writing books?
I was totally shocked when my first fan email after the first book came out. Within a week, I got an email from Australia, and someone wanted to be my next proofreader or editor so they could get an early copy of the next book. They liked the first one so much. I got a similar email, a little different in flavor, from England. And I was like, oh wow, I'm going to hit the bestseller list now. Well, I haven't gotten there yet, but seeing people read and enjoy my books is thrilling for me. So just like helping people, if I can help others enjoy their life a little bit more by giving them an escape, that's good.
That is absolutely wonderful. And for our viewers out there, if they wanted to be able to find some of your readings or learn where to go, where would you point them?
My website is www.kencoomes.com. That's KENCOOMES. I post a sample chapter so they can see what I write like, when the next book is coming out, and occasionally some tips on writing.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming out.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you for viewing this episode of TV Toastmasters. My name is Kristopher Taylor, and until next time, have a good week.
Speak in public? I'd rather be burned at the stake. At least that's how I used to feel, until Toastmasters. I went online and found a club that met every week at lunchtime, and they were close to my office, so it worked out great. I was really scared when I started, but no one pressured me to speak or pushed me to do anything I wasn't ready for. I felt safe, and I realized it was okay to be nervous and to make mistakes, because these people were going to support and encourage me no matter what. And now, well, let's just say things have changed. I speak in front of large groups, lead all-day seminars, and conduct presentations to top executives. Toastmasters changed my life.
There are over 100 Toastmasters clubs meeting all around the Portland, Vancouver area, near your office, home, or even your school. We meet on all days of the week, morning, noon, and night. Our clubs couldn't be more convenient or affordable at under $10 a month. Visit a couple locations and find the one that's just right for you. All the information you need is at Toastmasters.org.